Welcome to part 5 of this video series featuring the essential inputs in the AMTS.Cattle.Pro program. In the earlier videos in this series, we offered some of the key CNCPS biology details that you need to successfully formulate in AMTS.Cattle. In this video, we're just going to be talking about the functionality of the recipe screen. In this video, we're going to take everything that we've learned in the previous videos and put it together and use the functionality of the program to create a well-balanced diet and understand what the predictions are for these diets. This screen, in its purest form, is the ultimate goal of the tasks we have performed in the program thus far. This is our goal, feeding cattle. While it seems like it takes a long time to get to what we set out to do, the groundwork that we have laid will give us a better chance of modeling first what the cow is doing and ultimately building a recipe that will meet the goals we have for this particular herd. To review what we have covered in this Essentials series so far, we have started by creating a farm. The important inputs in that screen were milk price and the cost of replacement animals. Since most nutritionists are charged with generating a maximum return on feed costs, any sort of optimizing cannot happen without this information. Next, we set up the environmental conditions in the barn lots screen, with a focus on bolded inputs and discussion of the ways temperatures and activity can affect milk production and growth requirements. We then explored the cattle screen, again with attention given to the bolded inputs and the importance of correct characterization of animals for best predictions. In the video just prior to this, we explored the feed screen. Because accurate information on feeds, especially those as variable as forages, is so critical to getting useful predictions in the recipe screen, we created a separate video on importing feed analyses into the farm. You will find each of these videos in our program tutorial playlist. It may seem like a lot of work goes into inputs long before any attention is given to the real purpose of the program, formulation. In many ways, that is correct. However, something as complex as a biological system requires attention to details. We have built in convenience features that help make the process more streamlined. After these Essentials videos, I will work on a series that focuses on those ease of use details in each screen. For now, let's make a diet. I will first give you a quick overview of the recipe screen. For this video, I'm going to jump back and forth between two farms. One, quite complex with many groups, feeds, and recipes, and the other, our video farm that we are creating our diet in. Beginning with the more complex farm, the screen is bisected. On the left side are the inputs. The right side shows the outputs, or predictions. Inputs include the recipe ingredients, both on a dry matter and as-fed basis. The cost per ton of each ingredient is also shown. Single ingredient feeds will be in black font. Mixes that originate from another user's feed bank will be shown in green font, which means they cannot be edited until they are unlocked in the feed screen. Feeds that are in blue font are mixes that either originated in your feed bank or are already unlocked. The area below the total line shows the dry matter intake predictions. In lactating dairy cattle, two predictions will show: the CNCPS predicted dry matter intake and the NRC predicted dry matter intake. An additional label showing the relationship of inputted dry matter intake to the predicted is shown here. By default, the dry matter intake equation that is being used for this value is the CNCPS. This can be changed in Settings, Calculation Settings. The CNCPS equation tends to predict closer to actual in temperate regions with moderate rainfall. In hot and dry regions, we find the NRC dry matter intake equation to be closer to actual. If the dry matter intake prediction is significantly different than the actual intake, Double check your inputs. In the barn lot screen, you should look at your temperature inputs. Extreme heat or extreme cold will affect that equation. And activity. Too little time to eat enough. In the cattle screen, you may have to look to days around calving. 21 days before and after calving will affect the prediction. Inaccurate body weights can be another factor. Finally, feeds can be incorrectly characterized. Beyond the obvious issues on using library values rather than feed analyses, is there too much CHOC in the forage, or is there less than there is in a typical sample of that type? For example, BMR corn silage. Finally, there are a few feeds that, if included in the diet, will really influence the intake prediction. If you include any ingredients that are coded as calf liquid feed, CLF, the program will assume you are feeding a very big calf and predict dry matter intake very poorly. A common offender in this is magnesium oxide. This is frequently added to mineral mixes and often abbreviated as MAGOX. If you search for MAGOX to add to your recipe, you will be bringing in a CLF. The program will warn you, but we know you all click past these warnings without really reading them. In troubleshooting intake prediction problems, we have not infrequently found that to be the issue. Sometimes MinVit packs are nested inside mineral mixes and are nested inside a protein or energy concentrate. If a mix was created in the mix screen and it incorporated a calf liquid feed, you would not get the warning when it is brought into the farm. The effect occurs when it is brought in. It does not even need to be fed. Another product to be careful of is grape pomace. The high tannin levels will also affect intake if fed at a large enough quantity. There will also be predictions for water intake, both as drinking water and as part of the diet. The right side of the screen shows the predicted results. Along the top of the output section are tabs. The main tab, Ration Outputs, is typically how most users view the results of their formulation. The additional tabs allow you to focus on certain types of outputs. The Cncps tab displays Cncps-specific results. There are 480 different outputs. We have selected some of the values most nutritionists look at and set them up as the default selection when the screen loads. You can see all the outputs by using the Manage Outputs command drop-down and ticking Show All Outputs. Untick the same selection to revert to default. Given the number of choices for results, it can understandably be challenging to find the specific result. A nice ease of use function is the click to search area here in the heading of the output labels. For example, let's say this is a dry cow group and you want to see the DCAD results. Here you would click and begin to type DCAD. This search box uses predictive typing to narrow down the list as you key. In this case, you can see two choices, DCAD 1 and DCAD 2. Select the one you want to see, or both, and the program will move to that output in the list. Spelling is important. If the item you are looking for is not on the list, try a different word or an abbreviation. As a demonstration, I get nothing when I type in crude, looking for crude protein. However, change that to CP and it's easy to find. Before we move into building a recipe, let's talk about one really cool feature here on the right side of the screen. Next to most of the output predictions in this column here, you see a question mark. Click on that and you see a pie graph and a chart of what ingredients contribute to that particular nutrient. This is a wonderful diagnostic tool when you're trying to dial in a particular output or wondering what ingredients could be changed in a diet. Not every output is able to have an associated pie graph, either because we have not yet added it or it is a nonlinear equation. Some outputs do not pie well. Of special note is DCAD, which in dry cows is frequently a negative number. The value of using the question mark in this case is to see what is going into the equation. There are a lot of features that could be highlighted, but in keeping with the essential natures of this video, we'll now move into the steps needed to create a recipe. Back to our video series farm. When you first open the recipe screen, you get this message. It is a quick instruction that helps you set up. Let's close this and do what it says to do. To create the first recipe in a farm, we need to come up here to the ribbon bar and select the drop-down for Manage Recipes. Then Create Recipe, select the barn or lot, in this case we only have one, then select the group. I will start with this basic recipe in the milking cow group. The program suggests a name. You can accept that or enter a different name. I'm going to call it Base Lactation. Right away, the screen sets you to bring in feeds. On the left, you see the dry matter intake equations. On the right, the available farm feeds. Let's add some feeds. Similar to adding feeds in the farm from the feed libraries, click on the arrow button to send a feed over. When you do that, 1 kilogram of the first feed on the list will be added to the left or input side. The order that you bring in feeds will initially dictate the order on the left side. In a little bit, I'll show you how to change the feed order. By default, the selection of ingredients for recipes is the farm feeds. You can select feeds from any feed bank in the drop-down. Also, as in the feed screen, you can search for feeds by name or source ID. If you have only recipe ingredients in the farm feeds or have created a feed bank comprised of recipe ingredients you use most on your farms, a quick way to add feeds is to click Transfer All. You do not want to do this when you are in a large feed bank. It would create an unmanageable and unlikely recipe. Once you have added the feeds you think you want in the diet, you can click this center Hide bar to hide the feeds section and show the output section. If you want to select more feeds for the recipe, you can click Import to bring the feed selection screen back to the fore. So with the feeds I think I need for my recipe in the input side of the screen, I can next enter the quantities by entering values in on a dry matter or as-fed basis. You may find it easier to enter amounts by grouping feeds. We commonly see nutritionists starting with forages, then concentrates, then minerals, vitamins, additives. This is most easily accomplished by using the Manage Feeds button and ordering the feeds however you wish. You can click on this column in the sequence you want the feeds to list. Or if you like the order to a certain point, then you want to switch things, click on this button, then click in the desired sequence. You can use these radio dials to change the order by any of these parameters. The order ingredients are in the recipe screen will dictate the order in reports, especially batch reports and feeding sheets. This detail will give you a chance to conveniently list feeds by loading sequence, if that is important. Conveniently, there is an option to reorder in feed sheets as well, in the event that your formulation order is not in agreement with the on-farm loading order. There is an additional method of adding feeds to the recipe in the input side. Click in this space and key ingredient name to see a list of feeds from active feed banks that is predictively generated. Select the desired feed and close. After entering the ingredient quantities, we can look at our predicted results on the output side. Here on the output side, in the Ration Outputs tab, you can see that I have 3 value columns and the in-opt column. The value column is the predicted result of the inputted recipe. It considers all the parameters we have set up, the barns, lot settings, the animal group information, and how we have characterized our feeds. The font colors are indications of whether the predicted results fall between the minimum and maximum values you have entered for each. Green font indicates it falls within min-max ranges. Yellow font tells you it is within 10% of the min-max values, and red font indicates the value is over 10% outside the min-max ranges. My output lists also show highlighted labels depending on the value. This is because I've applied a ration output template to my outputs. Ration output templates are a quality of life enhancement that allows you to simplify and focus your outputs to the results you prefer. We have created RO templates that download with the program. The one called Tom's Current is what I have applied to my recipe. If you look at the selection of RO templates, you will see the option to apply with and without values. What that means is that when applied without values, the output list and order for that particular RO template is applied. When with values is selected, the min-max values will also be applied. I will cover RO templates in detail in a later video. We do have a brief overview in the Advanced Optimizer video with Tom Taluki. The outputs shown are a default list based on animal type. You can customize and arrange this list to your pleasing. As with recipe ingredients, outputs can be reordered using the Manage Outputs dropdown. In the Reorder dialog, shown outputs are in black font. Not shown but available are in an orangey yellow color. You can also move a single output by dragging and dropping. Even with 480 outputs available in the Rations Output tab, not all outputs are shown. I encourage you to explore the tabs on the output side of the screen to familiarize yourself with the different outputs. Now I want to return to the recipe screen as a whole to go over a few more essentials. One of the nicest features, I think, is this Ration Shot. The Ration Shot allows you to capture all the details about the recipe, feeds, cattle, and barn in a picture in time that will save briefly. Create your initial diet, take a ration shot, then you can make changes to that diet. Let's say you got a really good price on canola and you want to swap out some of the soybean meal. You can make those changes in the recipe right here. Take another ration shot. You are given the option to name it, so I will call this one High Can. Maybe I've run a new analysis on my corn silage, or I've changed bunks and I want to see how that changes the predictions. I can open the recipe screen, import the new analysis, feed that corn silage to the group, and take a ration shot. I can make changes to the cow information or to the barn lot details. As long as I navigate to those screens without closing this recipe screen, I can return and take a ration shot. Then, if I have a number of options I want to assess, I can click the Ration Shots tab and look at them side by side. Ration shots are relatively ephemeral. They are only shown as long as the recipe screen is not closed. If you close the recipe screen, you will lose your ration shots. We do give you a warning about that, but as I said, often you guys will click right through those warnings. You can print ration shots to a PDF to retain the information about your options. This can be a powerful tool to present what-if scenarios to clients. After you have analyzed the ration shots, you can select the ration shot you want to retain by clicking on the heading of the desired ration shot. If you exit the recipe screen or change recipes, whatever iteration of the recipe you were last working in on the Ration tab will be the retained recipe for that group. A nice feature is that we have it set up so that a ration shot is automatically taken when you load a group that already has a recipe. This allows you to make changes in the recipe screen, but still go back to that initial ration shot if you need to. A similar feature to the ration shot is the snapshot control. The main difference between the two is that while you can have multiple ration shots, the snapshot feature only shows one alternative and is only available on the Ration tab. We have a rather old but still pertinent video on this feature. The link is in the descriptions below. We are entering the home stretch of the recipe screen now. I just need to cover a few more essential details. Now that we have a recipe for this group, let's say we wanted to feed it to another group, or we want to use it as a base but change it slightly. How do we accomplish that? Or what if I want to create a different recipe for this group? Do I have to lose this one? For these tasks, we will use the Manage Recipe dropdown. We use this control to create that initial recipe. If you have more than one group on the farm, we can just repeat the actions we performed to create a recipe for the next group. To review, we would select Create Recipes, select Barn, Lot, select Group. Now, what if we wanted to feed this same recipe to a different group? Again, we go up to Manage Recipes. We want to feed this recipe to, and we're going to choose our location. We're going to choose a different group to feed it to. Now, what this does is it takes that same exact recipe and feeds it to another group. It's like you took your mixer wagon and mixed up one big mix, and then you dropped off enough to feed pen 1, and you dropped off a second amount to feed pen 2. There's absolutely no difference in that recipe, and there's no difference in the ingredients, just the quantity. So if you are perhaps feeding recipe that you've created using a mature cow and you fed it to a smaller, younger cow group, your dry matter intake prediction is going to be lower, and you can input directly what that group is eating. It will change all of the ingredient quantities, but keep them in the same proportion to the whole. Finally, what if you wanted to take this original recipe you created and use that as a base for another recipe that you feed to another group? It's not necessarily going to be the same recipe, but you have some of the similar ingredients. But let's say you want to add another protein mix or add an additional vitamin or mineral to it. To do that, you again manage recipes, copy this recipe and feed to, then select the location and select the group. What that will do is take the recipe and ask you to rename it, to give it a new recipe name. It's going to break the link between the two recipes so that you then have two separate recipes. Even though the second recipe is based off that first recipe, any changes you make to that second recipe will not affect the first recipe. It is a very important distinction to understand that feed this recipe to feeds the exact same recipe to another group, and copy and feed to will take the recipe that you've already created, copy it, break the link, and feed it to another group. The final feature in the recipe screen that I want to touch on are the various reports. I briefly mentioned batch report and feeding sheets earlier in the video. I will save them for a later video. For now, I will focus on the Reports and Reports to tabs. In the Reports tab, you can see a list of both general and very specific reports we have pre-designed. There is a section in which you can make your own custom report. The design process is a little tedious, and the field's not inclusive of all outputs, but it does allow for some customization. These reports will relate to the loaded recipe and the group it is being fed to. In this area, we have a few farm-level reports that will present some information on the whole farm. Some of these reports include excretion information and can assist in nutrient management. Reports to tab shows custom reports AMTS staff has created using a third-party report generator program. We have more flexibility in these reports and can show information more graphically. I especially want to point out the Lactation Evaluation Report. This report shows the predicted outputs on select parameters as well as what you have set for min-max values. In the comment section to the right, there is a brief discussion of the ranges considered optimal. This report is similar to the Cncps and AMTS diet matrices developed by Cornell and Dr. Taluki, respectively. An additional benefit to the software behind the Reports to tab is that it gives AMTS the ability to create custom reports for clients. We are also able to sell a report generator to companies who wish to create their own reports. Lynn manages this area. If you wish to know more about custom reports, contact her through email. This concludes this not-so-brief essentials of the recipe screen. There is much I have not covered. We will revisit this screen to make additional tutorials demonstrating some of the less essential and more advanced features. For now, this should give you enough information to create and manage rations for groups. I encourage you to explore the tabs, buttons, and commands on your own. Download the massive user's manual for functionality explanations. We have blogs and additional videos on program use accessible through our webpage, agmodelsystems.com. You will find the Ruminations blog under the Knowledge Base drop-down and videos under Support. This completes our Essentials series. I did not create an Essentials for the Mixes screen. Sam Fessenden made an excellent video in the Mixes screen and Mix Optimizer a few years ago. You will find tutorial videos on optimizing, both linear and advanced, and a tutorial on using the robot component feeding screen in our videos section as well. As always, we value helpful suggestions for future explainer videos and encourage you to look at our blog, videos, and webinar pages for more educational material. We are happy to respond to questions directed individually or to support@agmodelsystems.com.